Building a Golf 7R engine is something I did not think that I would be doing so soon. But we are here now and we are about to assemble a Golf 7R engine. If you haven't watched the previous two videos, I ended up with a Golf 7R that belongs to a buddy of mine and it had a bearing knock. And now we are here trying to bring this car back to life. So I am going to be measuring all the oil clearances and checking if this block is actually savable. Now, this is not going to be as straightforward as I would like it to be because Vdub Crankshaft is just around the corner. Now, if you guys don't know what Crankshaft is, it is a massive car show. I think it's the biggest one that's hosted in South Africa, and it is only 3 weeks away. Now, the date of recording this video is the 17th of Jan 2026, and Vdub Crankshaft is on the 6th of Feb 2026, which is the 3 weeks away. Now, I don't work on this car every day. I only got opportunity to work on this car in the evening and on weekends. That 3 weeks just leaves me with a few days. It's not a lot of time. That is going to be a huge challenge for me. I am going to try and rebuild this car and get it running for Vdub Crankshaft. I'm gonna drive this car and meet my buddy at Crankshaft with his Golf 7R. Now, obviously, he is gonna be watching this video and he already knows that this is what I'm trying to do. But we both don't know if I'm gonna even make it or if it's even possible for me. Enough wasting time. Let's get started. Okay, so this is the part that I managed to get thus far. So I got a brand new OEM crankshaft. I got brand new OEM pistons, and we are going to be using ACL race bearings. Now, to check the clearances, I'm going to start with the main journals, which is the ones that sit under these caps here. I'm going to be using an outside mic and an inside mic. And you can use plastic gauge if you want, or whatever measuring tool you decide to use, it's all good. So this is what I'm going to be using. What I've done so far is I've set the outside mic to the diameter of the crankshaft, and I will be zeroing out my dial bore gauge to that. I'm going to be removing the crank from here, and I'm going to install all the bearing caps back in, but with no engine bearings. And I'm going to check for any taperedness and what's the variation between all our journals. Hopefully they're all within the same range. So it's gonna be a bit difficult for me to have the camera in the way and show you guys what I'm doing. So I'm gonna try and explain it first and then show you some shots of it while I'm doing it. And just a disclaimer, I am not a qualified mechanic or a technician or a professional engine builder. I just learn whatever makes sense to me is what I go off. So I was joking with my friends and I told them, hey, you know what, I can build engines, I'm a professional, whatever, and unfortunately they believe me. And this is how I ended up in this situation. So I'm just joking. I think I can build engines. But anyway, we'll see if I can get this car running, if that is true or not. So the previous engine builder, whoever built this motor, already made notches in each one of these bearing caps because you cannot interchange these caps. So there is notches here. So this one has a 1 and that one has a 2 and 3 and 4, whatever. So you know which bearing cap goes where. These bearings look quite good. I'm just going to mark all of these bolts at the 12 o'clock position so that I can see where the 90 degree is, because the torque setting for these bolts are 65 Newton meters plus an additional 90 degrees. So this is the way I am choosing to measure my 90 degrees. What is cool with this engine is also to support these main caps. And what makes this engine so much stronger than the others is it got supporting bolts that come in from the side that hold these main bearing caps in as well. Okay, so all the bearing journals did meet, they were all within the same spec of each other. I don't know if that makes sense. But now what I'm going to be doing is installing these main bearing caps, main bearings onto the caps and into here. And I am going to do that measurement now again. And what that will give me is how much oil clearance we do have. And we can make sure that this is within spec according to the VW manual. We will be doing the same thing for the conrod. So we will measure the main journals now, and then we'll do the big end journals after this is done. Okay, so awesome news. All of these bearing clearances are within spec. It is such a relief that this block is okay. For now, I'm going to remove all of these caps and install the crankshaft. But first, I need to remove this crank pickup gear and install it onto the brand new crankshaft. So while I was removing this old pickup gear that usually sits over here to install it onto the new crankshaft, I noticed that this crank is a aftermarket crankshaft. So whoever rebuilt this engine did not replace it with a original, Audi crankshaft. Well, this crank doesn't have a VW badge anywhere on it, but it has a Audi badge on it. And this crank, nothing. So I think now maybe it makes a bit more sense as to why it ran a bearing. I don't know why it ran a bearing for the first time, but at least for the second time when they rebuilt this motor for whatever reason, they put a aftermarket crankshaft in here and probably did not check the clearances on this side. And it also looks to be that, so normally these cars come with a forged crankshaft, meaning that it is very strong. And this here could be a cast crankshaft because you can see all of these casting lines on it. So if you look here, you see these lines, these very thin lines that's made from the mold, and compare it to the original crank, you can see those lines are quite thick. So yeah, that's just a bit interesting. One of the first upgrades that we are going to be doing on this motor is installing a set of race engine bearings. So we are going to be installing the main ones, the main engine bearings, and the rod engine bearing. This is the final setup that I am going with. For this car. Now, I am using forged rods. This is a bit of a hybrid setup. Now, I know full race builds and stuff, I would not go with a cast piston, which is the VW ones. These are cast pistons. If this was a full-on race car and I was aiming for massive power, maybe we're talking like 500-600 kilowatts or horsepower. I'm not sure what that is in horsepower, but anyway, I would have went with a forged piston. Now, I know my friend. He does not race at all. He barely drives fast. So for him, this setup is perfect. So we had to replace the rods in any case, and a nice upgrade with these forged rods is they are quite strong and they come with stronger rod bolts. Also, with the standard pistons, there isn't much time. Sometimes you get pistons that need different clearances within the cylinders, and that will mean sending the block in and getting it all checked out to make sure that the pistons will fit, and yeah, we don't have any problems down the line. So a standard piston is also a easier way to go. It's a lot cheaper than forged rods, and even if we did put forged rods, we weren't going to even use it to its fullest capabilities. Now, I know in the past few videos and this video, you're hearing me talk about rods and cranks and pistons and whatever the case is. So I'm going to be using the old piston and crank to show you what each part is. So this is a crankshaft. This goes at the bottom of the engine. This is the main thing that rotates. And you get a piston. This is called a piston. This goes in the cylinder and this moves up and down. Then you get something called a con rod or a connecting rod. And it's called that because this here sits over this journal and it connects the crankshaft to the piston. And for short, we just refer to it as a con rod or a rod. And when these caps go on here, they go with these two bolts. And this is the rod bolt. To connect your piston to your connecting rod, you get this pin here. This is called a gudgeon pin or a wrist pin. So this is the final piece that will connect your connecting rod to your piston. And that is your gudgeon or wrist pin there, and that allows this piston head to rotate as well. I'll keep trying to explain as I'm going along, just so you can understand and you are following along. And I hope I'm doing a good job so far. Okay, so that's the rods. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to be installing the bearings onto these rods, and I'm going to be checking the oil clearances. So these rods, it's not very different compared to our factory rods because these rods are doweled. So they have two locating pins here on the sides, and compared to our factory rods, those are crack rods. So I will show the difference. So this is the two dowels or locating pins, and they recessed in here. But on these rods, you can see the surface here is smooth, and they got these locking tabs or locating tabs. So you can't mix these rods and caps. So I can't take this cap and use it from another one. So if your rods and you are doing this, you cannot swap these. So you can either mark them 1 and 1 or 2 and 2 and so forth. But these rods are quite nice. They got a number on them. You can see it says 1, 2, or 1 on both of them, and that one there is 1204. So, and this here is our standard rods that came from the car. You can see the difference between the mating surfaces. This has been cracked. So it used to be one piece, and they crack it at the factory. Each one of these are unique. So you can't mix these because the cracked marks, all of these marks won't line up with another rod, or so this belongs to this con rod forever. So yeah, I don't know what's the benefits of a crack rod compared to the forged rods with the dowels, but it is just a interesting comparison. And these ones don't have that locking or locating tabs on these bearings. So these bearings are also one of the upgrades that we're doing. Along with the main end bearings, we are using ACL race bearings in here as well. I'm not too concerned about these being off the measurement, the oil clearances, because these are brand new rods and we're using a brand new crankshaft. But it is nice to double check and triple check, because this is the most important part, I feel, of this whole engine build, just to make sure that our clearances are 100% and we don't have the problem again of running a bearing. So this is quite a crucial part, and I would like to just make sure, extra sure, that we don't have a problem. As you saw, I've checked the bearings and I did measure each journal on the crankshaft, and I will be matching each rod to the crankshaft. My measurement that I got is 0.015 inches throughout, and I am happy with that. I am extremely happy with those measurements. This is more or less, I'm gonna try here and show you. So I'm gonna put this in and you're gonna be able to see the gauge. So that reading there is about 0.015, and that is how you measure it. We still only measure the vertical clearance on this. So I am extremely happy. All of these are torqued to spec, which is, I think, for ARPs is 67 Newton meters. But when I install this into the engine, I'm going to be using a stretch gauge that is going to measure how stretched or how tight these bolts are, or how much they are stretching in the rods, which I think is a better form. ARP, the manufacturer of the bolts, do recommend using a stretch gauge, so I will be doing that. So this is, well, for me, this was one of the most stressful parts of measuring and checking. It did take me about 2 days to go through this, and when I got tired, I just went and I slept, and I came back and I double checked and triple checked just to make 100% sure, because I do not want to mess this part up. So the main ends are installed. The block has been cleaned out. I tried to flush out as much of the old oil and whatever was in here out as possible. The bearings are installed onto these caps. These are all getting new bolts. The crank I'm going to be cleaning up, and I just need to install the pistons onto the conrods, and I can get this bottom end of this motor assembled. Something else that is a bit important, those notches that we spoke about earlier, which is located here and here, and on the other conrod, they didn't have those notches. So when I install these rods into this motor, I'm going to make sure that these notches are in the same spot as these, I mean facing the same direction as those notches. So when you install your pistons, if you will see here, there is a arrow on them, and that arrow will point towards your timing chain. So I know which way that this piston will go inside and which way I can put the rods onto them. The crank is just placed into the block, and you can see that this crankshaft can move from left to right. So you get these bearings. These are called thrust washers. Some motors have 4 of them. This motor only has 2. So this here sits in between here, and it absorbs the pressure coming in from this area your clutch is bolted to. So it stops this left to right movement. You can see now with those bearings installed, there's like no movement. That is nice. Any experienced engine builders, let me know in the comments if you can spot the mistake that I made here. This is why I feel that using a stretch gauge is better than using the torque wrench, because, okay, so all of these bolts are loose. I'm going to now zero out this gauge to this bolt. Right, so that's on 0. And if I take this out and I'm checking this bolt, it has a different measurement. And comparing it to another bolt, we're also getting 0. So there is sometimes those small defects in these bolts. Without the stretch gauge, you wouldn't know this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to torque the bolts down to their correct specs according to the spec sheet, and I'm going to measure the stretch with this, and I'm going to make sure that they're all around the same stretch. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, so that is why I feel the importance of the stretch gauge, so we know all these bolts are going to be evenly torqued down. So this bolt has been torqued down to 67 Newton meters, which is what they recommend. On our box here, I don't know if you can see this, our stretch for the ARP 2000, the 3/8 is between 55 to 60 thousandths, and we are at around 45. Okay, so this is going to be my final reading, which is just above 55. So we're between 55 and 60. I'm happy with that. And I'm not going to be showing you all of me do all of these. I'm going to get these done all off camera. All 4 pistons I installed. I got all the bolts at the bottom on the rods. They are all stretched and torqued to spec. And I'm not going to lie, this looks so satisfying. Okay, so this is what I've got done so far, and I think we are quite long into this video as it is. This is the new oil pump, brand new oil pump that is going into the car. This upper pan is fitted. I cleaned it as best as I could to try and get anything off here as possible. Well, the chain has to come out because the other chains need to go on behind it, but small mistake. Unfortunately, I hate to do this to you guys because I hate it when it happens as well, but I'm going to have to end this video here, just assembling the bottom end. And the current date of recording this video is the 22nd of Jan 2026. And if you remember from earlier in this video, Fest is on the 6th of Feb 2026. Now this leaves me with about maybe 2 weekends like of proper work that I can get to finish this motor, get the cylinder head sorted out, and fit this motor back into this car. And hopefully I can do it a bit early before we leave, so I can at least fault find if there is any fault, which generally there is. So if not, I'm just gonna drive this car as is. So in the next video, I am going to be installing the cylinder head, all the hanging parts, timing chains, everything, and fitting this motor into the car and attempting to start it for the first time. So stay tuned for the next video to see if I can get this car done in time for Campfest.